Sheng Yuan read a romance novel. The lonely male lead in the book had a tragic childhood and was treated as a tool by his fiancée Ae, failing to win the heart of the female lead. Sheng Yuan is heartbroken. Let go of him. Let me do it. Then she dressed in books and became the fiancée Ae of a beautiful and tragic man, who worked hard and hard. Sheng Yuan is a well-known cancer actress in the entertainment industry. Before participating in the extreme variety show, the group mocked. Laughing to death, a vase with no binding power in hand, and being able to participate even if one cannot lift their shoulders or carry them. Bring funds into the group. After the first episode of the variety show, shocked. Lying down. 30 black-clothed people were defecated by her on the spot. Lying trough. Is a 10-meter-high airdrop package a hit or a hit? Lying trough. Guess the password box accurately. The director team is crazy. The audience is also crazy. After becoming popular, Sheng Yuan cried and said, "I just want to simply conquer a cub and go home." The cub sneered. Where do you want to go back? Novel keyword. Surprise. Xiao Zuo Jing is on the extreme variety show and has become popular without pop-ups, amazing. Xiao Zuo Jing's ultimate variety show becomes popular by killing themselves. Download the complete set of TXT, amazing. Xiao Zuo Jing becomes popular on extreme variety by doing hard work. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. 001 Where's Books? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1001 Where's Books? Shuddering, Sheng Yuan opened his eyes. To the eye is a pure white ceiling, with a droplet-shaped ceiling light. She slightly averted her gaze and saw the hanging medicine bottle next to her, dripping liquid down the transparent tube, with a cold sensation piercing through the back of her hand. What is she? Lying on the hospital bed. You're awake. Almost as soon as Sheng Yuan opened his eyes, a deep voice came from his ear. Sheng Yuan turned his head slowly to look. A man was sitting next to the hospital bed, with a very handsome appearance, deep facial features, and a cold temperament. At this moment, he was looking at her, with an undisguised annoyance and impatience in his eyes. Sheng Yuan's head began to ache. Strategy task binding is underway. Task objective. Obtain target audience, trust level, favorability level, and love value. If 2 of these values reach 100%, the task is successful. Return to the real world and fulfill any wish. On the contrary, if it fails, the host will always fall asleep. Role binding in progress. In his mind, some memories that did not belong to Sheng Yuan surged wildly. Sheng Yuan, 22 years old, is the only daughter of the chairman of Sheng Group. She grew up with a golden soup key and was spoiled and capricious. One day, the towering young lady met a man whom she fell in love with at first sight. Shixuan. It's the man in front of the hospital bed. She completely fell into the trap, changed her rebellious and reckless temperament, put on a gentle dress, and became a delicate little white flower lady. Create various encounters with him. However, Shixuan did not take her seriously at all, and instead became increasingly disgusted and irritable with her various behaviors. Until last night at the party, Shixuan appeared with a woman in his arms, her eyes filled with a gentle smile that Sheng Yuan had never seen before. He announced that he was about to get engaged. Immediately after, Sheng Yuan fell into the cold swimming pool. The scene was chaotic, and Sheng Yuan, who was unconscious due to drowning, was taken to the hospital. Everyone said that Sheng Yuan deliberately jumped into the swimming pool to disrupt the engagement between Shixuan and his fiancée Ae, in order to demonstrate. Shixuan was forced by the elders of the Shi family and reluctantly came to the hospital to visit Sheng Yuan. Miss Sheng Yuan, since you're awake, I think it's necessary for me to have a good conversation with you. Your actions yesterday caused great trouble for me and my fiancée Ae. The man looked at her coldly, with a cold voice and a rather impolite tone, as if Sheng Yuan was a persistent burden. I can ignore the small actions you made before, but yesterday's incident has affected my fiancé A's mood. If possible, I don't want to see you disturb our lives again. Xiao Xian. Before Sheng Yuan could reply, Sheng's mother, who had just returned from the attending physician, pushed open the door and tried to stop him from speaking. Xiao Xian, can we stop talking about these now? The exquisitely maintained lady's eyes were already flushed with tears. The doctor said that her body is still relatively weak and cannot withstand stimulation. When she recovers, I will tell her. Mom, I'm fine. Sheng Yuan slowly sat up, with a comforting smile on her pale little face. Sheng's mother's eyes turned even redder. The couple has always indulged their daughter, who was weaker than usual due to premature birth. Ever since my daughter met Shixuan, she has been determined to marry him. She has been constantly worrying about gains and losses, and she talks like a demon, not having a good conversation with them for a long time. Sheng's mother affectionately stroked her daughter's hair, and then saw her raise her hand and reach out to Shixuan. From this perspective, it's like Sheng Yuan going to lead Shixuan. The man immediately frowned and a hint of disgust appeared on his face. I think what I said is clear enough. Mr. Shixuan, can we make way? The slender palm made a gesture of making way in the air. Her polite shout from Mr. Shixuan caught the two people beside her off guard. You're blocking my line of sight. Shixuan. Seeing him still motionless, Sheng Yuan's expression became somewhat impatient and said, let's make way. Sheng's mother stood beside the hospital bed, stunned. She has always known how much her daughter likes Shixuan. The most frequent thing I recite in front of them every day is about him. Even when I sleep, I hold on to a pillow made from a photo of Shixuan. My always proud daughter is also gentle in front of Shixuan. But what happened to the expression on my daughter's face that she was chasing flies at this moment? Is it because I fell into the swimming pool? Did your brain twitch? A hint of unclear emotion on Shixuan's deep face disappeared in an instant, and then he stiffened his body and moved aside. The ward where Sheng Yuan is located is a VIP ward, arranged like a living room. Not far away is a small fabric sofa. Sheng Yuan couldn't wait to look over. His gaze met a pair of cold and desolate eyes, and in the pitch-black pupils, there was a desolate atmosphere. The owner of the eyes is sitting on the sofa. The young man wearing a white shirt and black pants had an excellent appearance, and his facial features were highly favored by the creator. He was clean and delicate, and upon careful examination of his eyebrows and eyes, he was somewhat similar to Shixuan. He is Shi Yan, the illegitimate son just recognized by the Shi family, the half-brother of Shixuan, and the fiancé A.E. of Sheng Yuan. It's also Sheng Yuan who came to this time and space. The target of the strategy. The girl sitting on the hospital bed was petite and weak, but her pale face was tinged with a hint of red. It's exciting. Sheng Yuan rubbed his fists and palms in his heart. Oh my goodness. Unexpectedly, she just said, how can such a beautiful, powerful and miserable man not be treasured? If I am the female owner, I must hide him at home, take care of him, and keep him safe for life. And then, surprisingly, it slipped into the book. Woo 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 woo. Shit. Mom, come and provoke me. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Shixuan, I don't like you anymore. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Shixuan, I don't like you anymore. Sheng Yuan and Shi Yan got engaged half a month ago. It was also a week after Shixuan announced that he had a girlfriend. At that time, Sheng Yuan was greatly affected, not eating or drinking, and his whole body was on the brink of collapse. And at that moment, she met Shi Yan, her illegitimate son who had just returned to the family. Due to the similarity in face between Shi Yan and Shixuan, Sheng Yuan became obsessed and immediately requested his parents to get engaged to Shi Yan. Shi Yan was just a newly adopted illegitimate son in the Shi family, with no connections, status, or voice. The marriage was immediately arranged, and the person was directly packed and sent to the engagement site. Touching these memories in her mind, Sheng Yuan only felt a tingling sensation on her scalp. The original owner is using the inkstone as a substitute. The cub is so beautiful. How could the original owner bear it? It's simply toxic. Sheng's mother followed her daughter's excited, conflicted, and self-deprecating gaze and looked over. That's when I realized. There is another person present in the room. It's not surprising that Sheng's mother ignored it. The young man in front of him was too quiet, as if he didn't exist. He sat on the sofa for a long time without saying a word, like a beautiful display piece. The young man glanced coldly at Sheng Yuan and then withdrew his gaze. He lowered his gaze again and continued to read the book in his hand. A bulky foreign language book, obscure and difficult to understand, but for Shi Yan, it is obviously much more interesting than Sheng Yuan. Sheng Yuan's inner QAQ. Help, the cub is so cute even with its cold and aloof appearance. Shi Yan. Sheng Yuan suppressed his excitement and called out to him. The girl's voice carries a unique sweetness. However, the person being called out, with a posture like a pine tree, motionless, indifferent to anything outside, as if completely unheard of. Shi Yan. That person remained unmoved. However, we cannot blame Shi Yan. After all, even if Sheng Yuan got engaged to Shi Yan, only Shi Xian was full of satisfaction and didn't take Shi Yan seriously. Especially when the two appeared in the same place, Sheng Yuan treated Shi Yan as if he were a transparent person and showed his attention to Shi Xian. With great peace of mind, let Shi Yan put on this green hat. Sheng Yuan once again despised herself in her heart. She sighed and prepared to get out of bed and walk over to find slippers. However, before she could move, a cold rebuke came from her. Shi Yan, can't you hear others calling you? That's how you learned the rules after returning to the Shi family for so long. Shi Xian furrowed his brow and looked at Shi Yan with displeased eyes, with a face that read, indeed, having illegitimate children is not appropriate. Or rather, your mother never taught you these things before. Shi Yan has just returned to the Shi family for 6 months. Before returning to his hometown, he used to live with his mother Jiang Yu. As a weak woman with a boy, his life would be very difficult. It can be imagined that even 3 meals were a big problem, not to mention manners and etiquette. Obviously, Shi Xian thought so. He was making it clear that Shi Yan's mother couldn't stand the stage and couldn't teach her son well. This is undoubtedly to embarrass Shi Yan. The next second, the boy lifted his head, his fluent and beautiful jawline slightly taut, and his pitch-black eyes gleamed with a hint of coldness. Shi Xian just felt a bit stuffy in his chest and wanted to vent his anger. He sarcastically tugged at the corner of his mouth and said, "Am I wrong?" "Shut up." Shi Xian. Sheng Yuan suddenly interrupted Shi Xian's words. She lifted the blanket and stood up, her voice different from before. Her delicate eyebrows and eyes were filled with anger. How is Shi Yan's mother? It's not your turn to intervene. You are not qualified. The girl's roar startled everyone in the room. Sheng's mother exclaimed in an instant that her daughter had always been gentle in front of Shi Xian. She wished she could hold her heart out to Shi Xian and never speak so harshly towards him. But now especially for Shi Yan. This is really unbelievable. Sheng Yuan's words caused the cold expression of the young man on the sofa to pause for a second, but it was only a moment, fleeting, and immediately returned to a dead silence. And Shi Xian, who had never been treated so coldly by Sheng Yuan before, also looked at her and said, "You." Sheng Yuan glanced at the still hanging water, just regular glucose. She simply lifted her hand and, ignoring Sheng's mother's exclamation, pulled out the needle and pressed the cotton wool on the back of her hand. The whole action was swift and decisive. This action made some memories flash through Shixuan's mind, but quickly, he couldn't grasp it. She walked up to Shixuan in front of everyone's gaze, paused, and spoke with a cold and sincere tone. "I'm really sorry, Mr. Shixuan. Yesterday at the party, it affected you and your fiancé A.E. Here, I apologize to you, including the inconvenience caused to you earlier. I can make a clear promise now that I will never disturb you again in the future. I don't like you anymore." The girl's voice was firm and resolute. The man suddenly stood up from the chair, which fell to the floor and made a dull sound, but he was not in the mood to intervene. His deep facial features were somewhat shocked. He doesn't know what's wrong with himself either. What's going on? Isn't what she said exactly what she has always hoped for? I hope she won't be stubborn, harassing and bothering herself anymore. Now that he has achieved his wish, he can't speak at once. Sheng Yuan looked at him with an indifferent expression, his thin back straight, and said, "Those things before were all my fault." At this point, she immediately changed her tone with a hint of sharpness, saying, "But Shixuan. He is the fiancé whom I have met with my parents and exchanged rings with before. So Shixuan's mother will also be my mother in the future, and I absolutely don't allow anyone to slander her. I hope you will pay attention to your words in the future, otherwise don't blame me for being impolite. Finally, thank you very much for coming to the hospital to see me." Sheng Yuan made a gesture of seeing off the guests. "You can leave now." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. I have such a good fiancé. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. I have such a good fiancé. How could Shixuan ever be so shameless in front of others? But this person happened to be Sheng Yuan, who had been infatuated with him and wished he could commit to him. "Miss Sheng Yuan, please don't go too far." The door of the ward was pushed open from outside. A woman with long curly hair in a Chanel suit walked in. She had a charming and elegant appearance, and the large necklace and handbag around her neck added a lot of charm to her temperament. At this moment, a layer of anger appeared on her face. Sheng Yuan looked over and personal information automatically popped up in her mind. This woman is Gu Yun, Shixuan's fiancé A.E. Gu Yun leaned at the door and eavesdropped for a while. She knew that the daughter of the Sheng family had always coveted her fiancé, and she was afraid that this little fairy would use any tricks to seduce Shixuan. After all, I haven't even accounted for what she did yesterday. But it seems that it can't be counted either. Sheng Yuan is a young princess who has been eagerly welcomed by the Sheng family, and she has no background. It was only through good luck and a coincidence that she caught up with the young master of the Shi family. When she heard that the little fairy finally agreed not to entangle Shixuan anymore, she breathed a sigh of relief and immediately thought to herself, maybe Sheng Yuan had used another method to attract Shixuan's attention. She definitely wouldn't let Sheng Yuan succeed and rushed in immediately. Gu Yun was indignant and said, "Miss Sheng Yuan, you always try to ruin the relationship between me and Ah Xian. We adults have a lot of disagreements with you. But he came to see you with kindness today, and didn't expect it to be treated like a donkey's liver and lungs. Did you lose your memory? Did you forget how you entangled him before? You pretend to be feeling unwell time and time again to win his sympathy. Xian is kind-hearted and treats you like a younger sister. He tolerates you to the fullest extent. What else do you want him to do?" Gu Yun's every word is neither humble nor overbearing, just like a considerate woman who genuinely thinks for her beloved, tolerant and magnanimous. She held on to Shixuan's hand tightly, and he turned his head. The two of them exchanged a glance, and Shixuan gave a comforting look. Sheng Yuan was too lazy to look and sneered. Miss Gu's words are so touching that tears flow down her face. "I can't help but applaud for you," Sheng Yuan said before clapping her hands. "If you don't need your ears, you can donate them to those in need. Just eavesdropped outside the door for a while, didn't you hear what I was saying clearly?" Gu Yun's expression changed and she said, I I didn't eavesdrop. It was Xian who brought me here to make me feel at ease. I was just waiting for him at the door. As she spoke, she became much more righteous and sarcastically said, after all, Miss Sheng Yuan has learned a lesson from her past and is afraid that you will do something difficult for Xian again. Don't be embarrassed, we still need it. Oh. Is that right? Sheng Yuan tilted her head and looked at Gu Yun. Why don't we lower the surveillance and see if there was a woman lying outside the ward like a four-legged turtle eavesdropping? Sheng Yuan finished speaking and looked at Sheng's mother. By the way, Mom, our Sheng family also has shares in the hospital. So, we should check the surveillance footage, which should be quite fast. Gu Yun's words were too harsh and her tone was eerie. Sheng Mu was already a bit unhappy and said, of course. Gu Yun suddenly panicked and said, you. What tricks are you trying to play? Xian won't pay attention to you. Shut up, you. As a god's perspective who has read a book, Sheng Yuan knows what character Gu Yun is. She tends to follow the crowd and likes to make friends with influential people. After becoming Shi Xian's fiancée AE, she has mocked and ridiculed Shi Yan's background. Sheng Yuan couldn't be polite to her and said, do you think I have a lot of time here to play Tai Chi with you? I said, I won't like Shi Xian anymore, but I won't like him anymore. Why do you insist on seeing me continue to pester him, and then you feel relieved? The girl was both bright and vivid, with a slight curl of her lips. How about I tell Uncle Shi that I must marry Shi Xian in this lifetime? The condition is that all future collaborations between our Sheng family will always prioritize the Shi family. Do you think Uncle Shi would agree? Sheng Yuan raised his porcelain white neck and said leisurely. Somehow, she suddenly felt a hint of coldness, with a faint hint of sarcasm spreading from the sofa. Sheng Yuan restrained herself and didn't look over. She gave Gu Yun a cold smile with her crimson lips. Gu Yun's face turned pale with fear. She was completely unsure if Sheng Yuan was scaring her, but what she was certain of was that Sheng Shi had the ability to. Shi Xian felt Gu Yun's hands trembling. He frowned and looked at Sheng Yuan. What are you talking nonsense about again? Did you just? Since you know I'm talking nonsense, why are you still here? I have such a great fiancée, how could I possibly marry someone else? Do I look like I have a brain full of bubbles? Sheng Yuan is like you Ronyan, especially when it comes to having such a good fiancée. Her gaze is clear and clear as she looks at the young man on the sofa. The cold and aloof boy glanced at her. His pitch-black pupils froze for a moment, but his emotions did not fluctuate at all. Xian. Since Miss Sheng is not welcome, let's go. Gu Yun dared not look at each other anymore. She no longer had the high posture of just entering. She was a bit afraid of losing Shi Xian, the fiancée of a wealthy young master, and afraid that her dream of becoming a wealthy family would be shattered. She needs to quickly take Shi Xian away from here. Shi Xian, however, was somewhat stunned and felt a strange emotion spreading in his heart. Xian. Are you listening to me? Gu Yun anxiously tugged at his hand. Amidst Gu Yun's third shout, Shi Xian lowered his head and saw his fiancée, who was tightly leaning against him, looking anxious and insecure. He suddenly woke up. Yes, Gu Yun is his fiancée. He met her at the shooting range, and her confident figure with 10 arrows and 10 rings captivated him at first sight. He chased to the door and saw the person who had taken off the sun hat. It's Gu Yun. Then he officially pursued her, and she quickly agreed. Not long after, he announced their engagement. Her figure holding an arrow is so sharp and decisive. Beautiful as a flamboyant butterfly, deeply imprinted in his mind, every time he thinks of it, it makes him heart skip a beat. But now she's scared because of Sheng Yuan. So, Shi Xian, how could you be willing to make her sad? Shi Xian quickly reflected on himself, and his profound features finally regained their usual indifference. Let's go. Shi Xian grabbed Gu Yun's shoulder and left. For some reason, as he left, he turned back for the first time and gave Sheng Yuan a deep glance. The girl who used to look at him with stars in her eyes didn't look at him anymore, but instead looked at his half-brother, Shi Yan. End of this chapter. The first step in Chapter 4's strategy for the cub is to visit his personal WeChat account. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The first step in Chapter 4's strategy for the cub is to visit his personal WeChat account. After Shi Xian and Gu Yun left, Sheng Yuan also took a breath and coquettishly said to Sheng's mother, "Mom, I'm hungry." "Hey, okay, I'm calling the servant now to prepare the food and bring it over." After Sheng's mother finished speaking, holding her phone, she hesitated and glanced at Shi Yan before opening the door and leaving. Now, there are only Sheng Yuan and Shi Yan left in the room. Sheng Yuan ran to Shi Yan in slippers with a clattering sound and sat down on the sofa opposite the boy, propping her chin up. Take a closer look at Shi Yan. The young man exuded a cold and aloof temperament. Peugeot's appearance becomes increasingly clear, with neat eyebrows, long eyelashes like crow feathers, pitch-black pupils, and a high nose bridge. Even the shape of the lip is so beautiful that it can be described as sexy. Woo-woo, truly her cub. Sheng Yuan secretly poked and thought. She looks several hundred times more beautiful than the paper man she imagined. So, how did the original owner Sheng Yuan come up with the idea of replacing Shi Yan with Shi Xian? Whether objectively or subjectively, Shi Yan is simply throwing Shi Xian end streets, isn't it good? Sheng Yuan was completely unaware of how intense his gaze was. Sitting across from her reading, Shi Yan wanted to ignore it and couldn't ignore it at all, especially feeling that her face was about to be burned out by her gaze. Finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and said, "How long do you have to watch?" The young man spoke coldly, his voice dark and hoarse, so pleasing that he instantly grasped his hearing. Sheng Yuan felt her eardrums tremble for a moment. Seeing that he was finally willing to talk to her, she suppressed her excitement and simply stood up and slipped over to him. With a devout gaze, she held onto his sleeve and looked up. "I won't disturb you. You look at your, I look at mine." Shi Yan was stunned for a rare moment, his cold eyebrows furrowed, and his pitch-black pupils were icy cold. He raised his hand and said, "Let go." "No," she grabbed his wrist directly. "The baby's hands are so cold and thin." Sheng Yuan's heart tightened. The soft and warm touch of the girl spreads from her skin to her blood vessels. Miss Sheng Yuan. A very distant and indifferent title. Sheng Yuan felt a bit aggrieved and said, "Don't call me that, just call my name." The distance between the two was very close, so close that Sheng Yuan could smell the clean and refreshing scent of cedar described in the book. Shi Yan's eyebrows are very cold. "I want to draw my hand and leave, but I can't." The task assigned to him by his family today is to accompany Sheng Yuan, who is hospitalized. Although it is well known that Sheng Yuan despises him and has a special fondness for Shi Xian, the Shi family, in order to please the Sheng family, is afraid that Sheng Yuan will turn back on this marriage and lose this privileged family member. They like to assign a task to him to win Sheng Yuan's favor. The handsome face of the young man tightened even tighter, with a hint of disgust running through his pitch-black pupils and a colder voice, like an ice cellar. "What are you doing? Shi Xian is not here, doing these things is of no use. What's it about him?" Sheng Yuan tilted her head in confusion. Why mention him? Sheng Yuan never thought that she could get so close to him. Because of Shi Yan, she brushed through the novel n times, and after reading it, she felt heartbroken for him. At night, she silently shed a lot of tears, and even wrote tens of thousands of words about him on a certain platform. Woo-woo, she dreams of hugging him. The girl's words are direct and honest. But in Shi Yan's view, there is no credibility at all. How much Sheng Yuan liked Shi Xian at that time, everyone knows. How could she wake up like a different person? This is probably another bad trick by the young lady. "I want to play a prank on Shi Xian for the sake of him. You let go of me first." "No. He was rejected by her as soon as he spoke. As soon as I let go, you ran away. Shi Yan. There was a stalemate for a while. If you want me to let you go, you can do it. Promise me one condition. Sheng Yuan shook his furry head. Shi Yan's eyes turned cold. Look. Sure enough. I have raised the conditions. Is it to let him get out of the Shi family and not obstruct Shi Xian's eyes, or something that would trample on his self-esteem? Then the next second, he heard the girl's soft voice and said, "Don't call me Miss Sheng Yuan, okay?" Shi Yan turned around and met the clear eyes of the young girl. In her sparkling pupils, only his shadow was reflected. He curled up his fingers stiff for a moment, then coldly looked away and said, "Sheng Yuan." "I'm here," the girl sweetly replied. "Young master, you can go now." "I'm sorry." The driver of the Shi family pushed the door in and unexpectedly saw Miss Sheng Yuan as soon as he entered. The young master, who has always been aloof from his own family, is very close together. He almost thought he was blinded. Stayed for a few seconds. The barrage of bullets drifting through the screen full of precious circles is really chaotic. The driver quickly turned his gaze towards the corner of the wall and coughed lightly, "Young master, it's time to go back." Shi Yan had never felt the driver's voice of the Shi family be so melodious, like a heavenly melody. Taking advantage of Sheng Yuan's lack of attention, he stood up as if relieved, not forgetting to take his own book and not reading her. "Get up and leave." I took a step. I can't walk anymore. Because someone grabbed him. Sheng Yuan hooked his finger around the corner of his clothes and looked up pitifully. "Add a WeChat before leaving, dear." Although the original owner and Shi Yan were engaged, Sheng Yuan never approached him after the engagement. The number of times the two met could be counted with one hand, let alone having contact information privately. The first step in conquering the cubs. I need to go to his personal WeChat. No. Shi Yan didn't deceive her. He doesn't play WeChat and doesn't have any social media apps on his phone. So, what's the phone number? After a moment of silence, Shi Yan turned around and looked at her, with a dim and indistinct light in his black eyes. He really can't understand her anymore. Finally, in order to get rid of Sheng Yuan as soon as possible, Shi Yan left a number, walked away with his long legs, and quickly left. A girl's distant voice came from behind. "Remember to read the text message, the boy's footsteps are faster." The room completely quieted down, leaving only Sheng Yuan alone. She happily saved the number of the inkstone and hummed a little song as she entered the restroom. In the mirror, the girl was born bright and charming, with full and rosy lips and snow-white skin. Be sure of a beautiful woman. It's just that the original owner was a reckless and arrogant young lady, but for the sake of Shi Xian, she made changes and wore a plain dress that didn't suit her very well. Sheng Yuan turned around and locked the door to the restroom. He raised his wrist and looked at the electronic watch-like object on his wrist, asking, "Get the task value." A strange light immediately flashed on the electronic screen, followed by a mechanical sound in the mind. "Love value. 0%." Sheng Yuan nodded unsurprisingly. "Favorite rating." 0%. Sheng Yuan nodded calmly. After all, she had too many criminal records, and it was difficult for her cubs to develop a favorable impression of her for a while. Then there is trust level 20%. Sheng Yuan. Did she get distracted by the strong wind in the bathroom? The system responded mercilessly, no. Why did it become negative without adding anything? Did you even lose 20% in one breath? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. I invite you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. I invite you. The night is deep, and the streets are dimly lit. The neon lights at the corner bar flickered with ambiguous light. 3 black sedans drove from the other end of the street and stopped at the entrance of the largest bar in Beijing. At first glance, it is evident that the sedan is expensive, especially the leading one, with a golden flying goddess statue in front of the body. At the entrance of the bar, several pairs of men and women who were originally joking with each other stopped moving and couldn't help but look over, sighing. I saw the rear car door pulled open by a muscular man in a black suit. A slender figure jumped down lightly, and the knee-length skirt traced a beautiful curve at the girl's calf. Exquisite small leather shoes stepped on the ground. The girl's eye-catching face was vivid and bright. Sheng Yuan frowned and looked at the bar, asking the system in her mind, "Are you sure this is where Shi Yan works? How could it be said that it's all the bloodline of the Shi family? How could it fall to the point of wanting to make a living?" The mechanical voice let out a loud and cold "hm." The muscle bodyguard lowered his head respectfully and said, "Miss, are you really going in?" Sheng Yuan let out a sigh. "Push the door open. The lighting inside the bar is not much better than outside. The deafening music, colorful lights and the body wriggling wildly on the dance floor. Luxurious and ambiguous." Near the entrance booth, there sat a man with a beer belly, holding a woman dressed in revealing attire in his arms. He lowered his head and teased something. As soon as he put down his glass, he looked up and saw Sheng Yuan, who had just entered the door. The delicate young girl's clean and noble aura was out of place, and her face was as vivid as a rose with morning dew. "You're a beauty." The beer-bellied man grinned, revealing a set of yellow teeth. He pushed away the woman in his arms and walked over, his gaze fixed on Sheng Yuan. "Sister, looking for someone?" The overwhelming alcohol and unpleasant body odor made Sheng Yuan's face show disgust, and he took a few steps back, covering his nose. "Absolutely. Walking old pot of pickled Chinese cabbage." The man chuckled and said, "Do you need my brother's help?" "Ah." Before he could move, a scream had already come out of his mouth. The bodyguard stepped forward and twisted his arm, then threw him on the ground like garbage. The man collapsed on the floor, howling in pain. Sheng Yuan playfully curled her lips, and the crystal hair clip on her black hair shone brightly. She lowered her eyes and said, "Can you still help me, brother?" The man quickly shook his hand in fear and said, "No, no, 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 no." Sheng Yuan didn't take a second look, lifted her foot and crossed over. Two bodyguards behind her followed, while the other two went to clean up the video that someone had just raised their phone and captured. Nearby people who saw this battle probably understood. Which family's daughter is this? She came here to blow up the scene. The internal structure of the bar is huge and complex. Sheng Yuan searched for a while and finally found Shi Yan in the VIP area. The boy was dressed in a dark gray server uniform, with a shirt meticulously tied to his waist. The narrow waistline exuded a strong feeling, and the slim work pants made his legs look even longer. He stood sideways, with short and sharp hair, standing tall and straight like a clear pine tree. Just one figure makes people feel moved. But before Sheng Yuan could appreciate it, he saw a scene that made her furious. In the booth, a woman wearing a purple qipao with a hint of age was holding a glass of wine with her hands painted with bright red nails, smiling obsequiously at Shi Yan. "Little brother, as I've said before, as long as you accompany me to this drink, I'll cover your performance for this month." The woman's belly was adorned with several layers of swimming rings on her qipao, her gorgeous curly hair, and her neck and wrists were covered in jade. From a distance, it looked like a row of dumbbells had grown on her arms. The woman's eyeballs clung tightly to the young man's body, her gaze extremely revealing. "Little brother, this deal is very cost-effective. Our red sister is not someone who can easily help anyone, it's just about a glass of wine." Several friends beside the woman covered their mouths and smiled in agreement. Shi Yan held the tablet menu, his profile cold and indifferent, and his voice without any fluctuation. No need. After a single refusal, he had to turn around and leave. Stop. The woman directly blocked his way and was embarrassed in front of her friend. Her expression was very unpleasant. I thought it was like helping you because I saw how hard it was for you to push the wine. Who knew you didn't recognize good people? The woman threatened and seduced. I see you're not very old and haven't seen you before. You've only recently come here to work, right? Do you believe that one word from me can make you lose this job? Red Sister's gaze fell on the young man. Seeing him silent, she thought she had successfully threatened someone, and her heart became even more restless. So, a glass of wine can not only help you keep this job, but I can also guarantee your performance in the future. Everyone is happy, she said, what do you think? As Red Sister spoke, she slowly leaned her body towards Sheng Yuan. The boy lowered his eyes, and an impatient coldness flashed through his pitch-black pupils. The slender fingers have touched the hard object on the waist side. But it hasn't taken action yet. Do you want to drink? I'll accompany you. The sweet voice of the young girl descended from the sky. In an instant, everyone turned their heads. The girl held her arms and stood there, with a delicate little face tinged with coldness. Her delicate white chin was slightly raised, and she directly reached out to hold the boy, blocking behind her. Sheng Yuan's tall body was caught off guard and he stumbled slightly under his feet. Sheng Yuan noticed his movements and tightened her fingers, firmly holding onto his hand. She turned her head and whispered, Sheng Yuan, don't be afraid. The laser light came down, so close that Sheng Yuan could see the small fluff on the girl's side face. He smelled the faint aroma of fruit. It's exactly the same as the one in the hospital that day. He silently glanced at the person who only reached his chest, then discreetly pushed back the things on his waist, his long eyelashes hanging cold and silent. Being interrupted by someone's kick at the door, Red Sister was very unhappy and said, Are you him? Who? What's up with you? Sheng Yuan chuckled angrily and said, What's up with me? You're blocking my fiancé, and I'm about to fall on him. Can you tell me what's up with me? What, fiancé? Hong Jie was stunned for a moment, staring at Sheng Yuan, and then her eyes rolled around as if she had seen through something. Little sister, when you lie, you still need to make a draft. Are you trying to save the hero by deceiving me here? The heavily make-up women next to her immediately agreed, that's right. Even if he's your fiancé, what's wrong? Now our Red Sister wants to have a drink with him. Be sensible and get as far away as possible. Sorry to disturb our Red Sister's interest, you can't afford it. Suddenly, Sheng Yuan smiled and said, That's great. That's right, I'm much more obedient now. Hurry up. Red Sister just managed to smile as a bottle of cold whiskey dripped from her pocket and she screamed in an instant, Ah! Damn it! Dare you throw it at me? Sheng Yuan let go of the empty bottle with a thud and leaned down to carefully wipe her fingers with a napkin. Red Sister rushed towards Sheng Yuan like she was crazy, and Sheng Yuan's eyes were not blinking, just staring coldly at her. Less than a minute. The bodyguard behind her quickly stepped forward and easily stopped Red Sister, including her friends. Sheng Yuan took the tablet and picked up over 100 dazzling bottles of wine, without paying attention to the price already exceeding 6 figures, and placed the order directly. Since you like drinking alcohol, then drink more. It's okay, that's enough. I'll treat you. The girl leaned down slightly and looked at Red Sister, who was pinned to the ground. Her lips curved into a faint smile. Don't go home until you finish drinking. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. You are domestic violence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. You are domestic violence. A long corridor, dim and spacious, with walls covered in avant-garde graffiti, and vibrating music coming through the walls. Sheng Yuan's tall body stood against the wall, and his delicate face was illuminated by the lamp, appearing cold and quiet, with a slightly hoarse voice. Why do you know I'm here? The system told me. I have investigated you. I followed you. All these reasons cannot be explained. Sharp as an inkstone. No matter which one she says, it will alert him. The trust value may decrease to 0.100%. So her strategic mission is direct, die. Sheng Yuan looked up, her gaze resembling that of a little lamb, completely unable to see the fierce appearance of Xiao when the bodyguard scolded her just now. She carefully glanced at Shi Yan's face. Then, the next second, she threw herself into his arms. Shi Yan. Woo Shi Yan, it's so scary. The girl's muffled voice came out of her arms. Do you know that if I come a little late, they will bully you? Shi Yan was momentarily stunned. The shirt on the waist side was grabbed by two small hands, and the soft feeling filled my arms. Raising land, the heart that has been frozen for too long seems to have been gently cracked open by a small crack at some moment. Someone is trying to surround himself with their own hands, pushing down the cold and hard city wall. A hint of coldness flashed through the young man's eyes. He strongly opposes this feeling and even hates it. Shi Yan raised his hand and pushed Sheng Yuan away with force, but she seemed to be determined and unwilling to let go. His hand became more and more forceful, and the fingers pinched on the girl's shoulder were turning white. Sheng Yuan was forced to take 2 steps back in pain. Woo, the cub is so heartless. She didn't notice the young man exhaling lightly. But he didn't expect it, just a few seconds. Sheng Yuan immediately pounced on him like a little butterfly. This time, she hugged his waist tightly. Before Yan could react, she closed her eyes and said, if you have the ability, you can crush me. Shi Yan. She said again, but you've pinched me to death. You're domestic violence and you'll have to go to jail to eat. A person like you who looks so beautiful, as soon as you enter, there will definitely be many bad people staring at you. Don't expect me, an invincible beauty, to descend from the sky and rescue you when the time comes. Shi Yan. I didn't scare you, but when you shout, break your throat, no one will help you. So Shi Yan, I advise you to think twice. Shi Yan. Sheng Yuan said seriously, cherish the person in front of you. Shi Yan. What is this all about? For a while. Sheng Yuan noticed that he didn't push her away anymore and was about to look up when the young man's deep voice came from above and he chuckled softly, Sheng Yuan, are you just chasing Shi Xian like this? Such initiative, enthusiasm, and difficulty to deal with. Coincidentally, the music at the bar reached its climax, with a deafening roar that Sheng Yuan couldn't hear clearly. What did you just say? The black hair on the young man's forehead drooped, covering half of his eyebrows and eyes, making his eyes indistinct. His voice was a bit cold. It's nothing. Okay. A faint voice said, can you let go? Okay. Sheng Yuan took a few steps back and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she had fooled the question over. She was almost nervous just now and was afraid that Shi Yan would continue to ask. Shi Yan regained his cold expression and glanced at time, saying, you go. What time do you finish work? Shi Yan's turning motion paused and said, what are you doing? Of course it's waiting for you to finish work and take you home. Shi Yan frowned, lowered his eyes, looked at her, and tugged at the corner of his lips, saying, Sheng Yuan, I'm not Shi Xian. Your hospitality is the wrong person. Sheng Yuan answered in a different way, it's very dark on the road. As a boy, it's so unsafe. She made a face and said, there's a ghost, aren't you afraid? Shi Yan. Refusal was on the tip of her tongue, but upon seeing the girl's incredibly persistent gaze, she probably knew she wouldn't just give up so easily. Forget it. She can play any trick. I'm still tired of Shixuan, it's better to choose him to play with. In short, it had nothing to do with him. If it was enough neglect, the young lady naturally felt bored and decided to quit. I can't leave until 12 o'clock, are you sure you can sit still? It's only 10 o'clock now. Seeing him agree, Sheng Yuan nodded happily, looking incredibly cute. Shi Yan glanced blankly and withdrew his gaze. The second floor of the bar is the area of the Supreme VIP. A young man wearing a floral shirt was holding a phone and looking at something, leaning against the leather sofa, laughing unsteadily. Interesting, it's so interesting. This young lady is so interesting. She looks so harmless, but she didn't expect to be a cruel person. Brother Xian, come and take a look. The man in the flower shirt enthusiastically handed over the video, and on the screen, there was a scene of Sheng Yuan splashing wine neatly, charming and domineering, commanding the bodyguards. Because the video was secretly filmed from the second floor downwards, and due to lighting and angles, only the snowy side face of the girl was captured. On the single-person sofa, the man was wearing a black shirt with deep facial features and a consistently cold expression. He took a sip of the wine in his hand and didn't even glance at the item handed over by his friend, saying, "Take it away." The flower shirt pouted in disappointment and sat back, saying, "Yes, yes, I know you're getting engaged. I only have eyes for your beautiful fiancé AE. No other woman can get into your eyes. If you don't look, then don't look." Humph, I appreciate it myself. This made Shixuan's fingers holding the wine pause for a moment, as if he remembered something. However, within a few seconds, his complexion returned to normal and he took a hard sip of the wine. Hua Shishiro watched the video several times again, and when he saw it for the 6th time, he turned on the loudest sound and finally heard a sentence clearly. It was said by the bodyguard. "Okay, Miss Sheng." The flower shirt raised its eyebrows and said, "Miss Sheng. Are you actually surnamed Sheng? Is it? Who could have this battle?" Upon hearing this word, Shixuan also instinctively paused. The man in the floral shirt shook his head suddenly and said, "No, no, it can't be Sheng Yuan. Definitely not. Sheng Yuan has pretended to have met you so many times. The number of times I have bumped into him alone cannot be counted with just one hand and one foot. Right, she always wears a white dress, like a small white flower. Humph, she looks like she falls when the wind blows. The key is that every time she's in front of you, she's always pretending to be a lady like Brother Xian and Brother Xian, and even after taking a bite of bread, she wants to chew it 20 times. How could it be the little sister in the video? The more you say about the floral shirt, the more you feel it's right." The next second, he stared at his phone screen and said, "Xian, isn't this the illegitimate child brought back by your old man?" The phone in his hand was snatched away, and the light shone on the man's facial features, only to see the expression on his face quickly darken. "Hey! Where are you going, Brother Xian?" The response to him was the cold and slightly hurried back of the man. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Sheng Yuan, stop being angry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Sheng Yuan, stop being angry. Inside the water bar, Sheng Yuan held a glass of juice and looked at Shi Yan, who was focused on his work. Stars appear in the eyes. The cubs are really beautiful. After enjoying it, Sheng Yuan sighed again. Also from the lineage of the Shi family, one is the towering young master of the Shi family with boundless glory. One is a destitute youth who, even if they recognize their ancestors and return to their roots, cannot win the favor of their family and still have to make a living on their own. Thinking about the outcome of his suicide in the end, Sheng Yuan's heart couldn't help but tighten and ache. The girl's gaze was too hot, with a certain strong emotion, and Shi Yan's movements paused for a moment before turning back. She immediately curved her eyebrows and eyes, looking at him with a smile, her whole body shining like stars in the night sky. Shi Yan looked away from him. Sheng Yuan. The man's suddenly cold voice suddenly sounded, with a hint of unconscious anger. Sheng Yuan was startled and instinctively frowned when she saw someone coming, saying, Shixuan. Why are you here? Shixuan stared at her with a heavy gaze and said, I should be asking you, why are you here? Or rather, someone brought you here, he said, looking at Shixuan with a pointed gaze. Is it related to you? Sheng Yuan's face was inexplicable. Shixuan felt a tightness in his chest and said, this is not where you should come. If Uncle and Aunt Sheng knew you were here, they would be worried. Now, come here, I'll take you home. Sheng Yuan refused, no need. Besides, as long as you don't say it, my parents won't know. You'd better take care of yourself. I don't need you to worry about my affairs. If you are free, you should pay more attention to your fiancé. When he heard the girl mention Gu Yun in a strange tone, Shixuan suddenly felt the tightness in his chest ease. Sheng Yuan, stop getting angry. Come here, I'll take you home. As he spoke, he directly stepped forward and grabbed Sheng Yuan's wrist. A man has never touched her like this before, and the moment he touched her in his palm, he felt very delicate and delicate. Just the next second, my wrist was pulled back. His heart also fell empty for a moment. I said, I don't need it. Sheng Yuan took a few steps back and retreated into an embrace. Shixuan reached out to stabilize her shoulder and then calmly let go. As soon as he looked up, he met Shixuan with a hostile and somewhat contemptuous gaze, but there was no expression on Shixuan's face. Shixuan. Shixuan frowned and began to accuse, how could you bring her here? Don't you know where this is? If you want to stay on your own, don't bring her up. In case something happens, how can you explain it to the Sheng family? Don't expect the Shi family to handle the aftermath for you. Sheng Yuan was already a bit impatient, but upon hearing these words, she instantly became angry. Shixuan, your mind has gone into cement. If you can't speak, don't say it. Shixuan was shocked and said, what? Have I been ignorant lately? Have you moved to the Pacific? Are you so narrow-minded? I warn you, it's best for you to speak politely to Shixuan. Sheng Yuan coldly withdrew her gaze and grabbed Shixuan before leaving. At exactly 12 o'clock, Sheng Yuan sat on a bench outside the resting room, waiting for Yan to change clothes. Indoor. Shixuan came out of the compartment and threw the employee uniform in his hand into the trash can. On the boss's chair in front of the office desk, a young man fiercely pressed his phone screen. After winning the double kill, he glanced at the trash can and spoke in a casual tone. TSK, I just wore my inkstone once now. Is that all I threw away? What a waste. Shixuan has already changed into regular clothes, with short sleeves in navy blue and transparent skin. Her slender thighs are wrapped in black sports pants, leaving her cold and clean. Just this once, let's not repeat it. The young man suddenly paused because his teammates in the game of hanging up started cursing, and he didn't care, just his eyes sank. Ian, do you understand what I meant by calling you back? I just want you to take a look. This bar has a higher daily flow of people and thieves make money. As long as you want, I can contact a lawyer tomorrow to transfer your name. Because it's already your thing. Why run back to that rotten shell at Shi's house and feel that kind of foolishness? It's not worth it. Shixuan seemed to remember something and his gaze became cold. No need. The young man took a deep breath and knew his temperament. He argued with him but couldn't come to any good results, and then regained his playful appearance. Okay, let me help you take care of it for now. However, with such a large store, I need to get a raise. After all, I diligently brew my sister's wine, every day. You see, I'm already injured, this is considered a work-related injury quotient. As he spoke, the man lifted his palm and exposed his thumb near a wound about 1 millimeter deep on his fingernail. Actually, he pulled the barb too hard. Shi Yan. The young man's eyes twitched again and he said, "Hey, I just saw it. There's a little sister behind you." "Who's that sister? She looks so handsome." Shi Yan looked at him expressionlessly. The young man immediately shrunk his neck and said, Okay. I won't ask. He made a zipper action with his mouth. "But I have a video here that you might want to watch, about that sister." He found the album, flipped through the surveillance footage inside the bar gate, and flipped it upside down. It was the scene of Sheng Yuan being stopped at the entrance. Shi Yan glanced sideways and couldn't hear his emotions clearly in his low voice. "I don't want to see this person again in Beijing," he said. The young man's heart relaxed for a moment. Startled by the cold and murderous aura of the young man, he felt so dazed that he felt like he was back a few years ago. Before Shi Yan opened the door and left, the young man couldn't help but say, "Ian, if you have anything, feel free to contact me anytime. Can I beg you? Because of the matter with the brokerage contract, you called me on the phone. I know you don't like us interfering in your affairs, so just give me a squeak, and I'll solve it for you immediately." The young man placed his palm on the doorknob and his side face was cold. "No need." The young man knew it would be like this, sighed, nodded, and frowned. He was still curious, that little sister at the door. Shi Yan interrupted in a cold voice, "She's not anyone." Sheng Yuan felt it very clearly. Shi Yan's breath became even colder. If it was just the usual coldness before, then now it is a dead and gloomy moment. Like a grassland burned down by fire, it is barren and lifeless. She looked at the young man's back, and the mechanical sound in her mind rang out, "The strategy task has been refreshed. Please accompany the target player to participate in the variety show, Crazy Run." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. New strategy tasks refreshed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. New strategy tasks refreshed. Learning and various part-time jobs almost occupy all of Shi Yan's time. Around the time of her third year of high school, her mother Jiang Yu's mental state deteriorated to the point where she needed to be hospitalized for long-term treatment. The high treatment cost allowed Shi Yan to accept the olive branch thrown by the persistent star scout. He rose to fame in the entertainment industry with just one song MV, thanks to his face. Afterwards, there was a constant stream of endorsement advertisements and movie scripts coming to our doorstep. At the age of 20, Shi Yan won the Best Actor trophy, which was his peak of popularity, almost reaching the level of nationwide pursuit. But after earning enough medical expenses, Shi Yan resolutely chose to withdraw from the circle and disappeared from the public sight. But just last week, a movie produced by Shi Yan, which had been under pressure for a year, was released, and the box office exploded. The name Shi Yan once again sparked a huge wave. The agency he signed with suddenly reneged on his contract, threatening him to return to work with an unexpired artist contract. To teach him a lesson for his incompetence, he was sent to participate in a devilish variety show purely for the purpose of torturing people. Sheng Yuan remembers. This devilish variety show called Crazy Run, under the guise of challenging something unusual, has beaten up one group of celebrities after another. Due to being forced to participate in this program, Shi Yan was tormented and lost a few laps. When he returned, he fell seriously ill and stayed in the hospital for half a month before recovering. The host's task goal for this time is to accompany Shi Yan to participate in this variety show next week and have him record the first episode without any damage. As a well-known gold medal agent in the industry who can easily make the entertainment industry tremble with just one foot, Zhang Bai received a call from Sheng Yuan. He did shake 3 times, cautiously facing the other end of the phone. Auntie. Regarding the title Auntie, Zhang Bo calls it true. Sheng Yuan is his aunt and ancestor. Whenever Zhang Bo mentions her, he can't help but have a myocardial infarction. After graduating from university, Miss Shanda spent her free time traveling and shopping every day. Suddenly, she had a sudden impulse to enter the entertainment industry and play. At first, when Zhang Bo saw Sheng Yuan, he was overjoyed and thought he had picked up a treasure because Sheng Yuan had a small, fiery face. But who could have thought of it? Who could have thought of it? This ant is doing all the firefighting and blackmail work. What can't I do? I'll be the first to die. Not long ago, my family spent tens of millions stuffing her into a certain production group to play a serene vase that doesn't even require lines. On the day it turned on, she croaked and slapped the female protagonist. The entire crew was completely stunned. And Miss Shanda, with her delicate white chin raised, gave the reason that she couldn't stand her. The female protagonist also has a high status in the circle, and she is so angry that she claims to have me, not her, not me. Zhang Bai clenched the 8 bottles of quick rescue pills in his pocket and rang the doorbell of the Sheng family. He even envisioned the next scene in advance. The young lady lay comfortably on the noble concubine's chair, holding delicate afternoon tea cakes with her hands, while 4 or 5 servants were serving her. However, when the door was opened, Zhang Bai's death smile paused, revealing a hint of confusion. In my impression, I always loved to wear high-end clothes, carry jewelry worth millions of dollars, and write on my face that my sister is very noble. Surprisingly, one day she will appear so pure in front of people. The girl's simple light-colored home outfit, with seaweed-like long curly hair casually tied behind her head. A clean little face, fair and vivid, with a pure sense of innocence emanating from the lying silkworm in front of her. Then Zhang Bo heard her say softly, "Hello." Zhang Bai dreamily entered the door. Then the dream was suddenly shattered in the next second. What? Are you going to participate in Crazy Run? Zhang Bai's expression was, "You're teasing me, you're crazy, you can't think of it anymore, and I'm stupid. Auntie, do you know what kind of variety show this is? Are you going? You wouldn't think you were going on vacation to Hawaii, would you? Crazy Run is a well-known reality variety show in the industry. But it is famous for using torture celebrities as a gimmick. Not to mention various bizarre and exciting tasks. The recording environment is still very harsh, and the key is that I can't eat anything, and I still eat some strange things. Assistants are not allowed to bring them, so many people go in straight and cry in less than an hour to call their agents to get them back. This program has a lot of scolding, but it is also highly popular and has a larger audience. After filming the first season, the production team quickly announced that the first episode of the second season was about to start recording. I know, so I have to go even more. Zhang Bo. What? But then I don't know who will torture who. Sheng Yuan sat on the sofa and suddenly curled her lips and smiled. Before leaving for the hotel, could you help me buy a few things? Sheng Yuan looked up and winked. Zhang Bai's face remained expressionless. Oh, he understands now. Miss Shanda's brain was once again full of excitement. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Shi Yan's hot search suppressed by Sheng Yuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Shi Yan's hot search suppressed by Sheng Yuan. 9 o'clock in the evening. The SD Entertainment Company building is brightly lit. Chen Zhuang, who was only 30 years old, pushed his phone over with a calculating smile on his face. He looked at the quiet young man across from his desk with a pair of eagle-hooked eyes. Xiaoyan, take a look. The comeback notice just issued has more than 1 million comments in less than an hour. Look, the public is still so enthusiastic about you. How can you bear to disappoint them? I said, you were born to eat this bowl of rice. You see, when I saved you from water and fire, now that I'm in trouble, you have to come back and help me, right? The young man's thin lips curved a cold curve and said, why bother with the contract to save lives? Chen Zhuang's face suddenly turned ugly. Shi Yan doesn't like the softness or hardness of it. It seems that no matter what, we can't agree on this matter. He sneered and said, okay, since you're toasting and not being punished, why should I rush to persuade you? Young people can't handle things clearly and always need to suffer some hardships. Next week, you can honestly go to that variety show for me to reflect on. I've figured it out, remember to come back anytime and beg me, I'm waiting for you. After finishing speaking, he fiercely took back his phone, and when he saw that Yan's name was not high on the hot search list, he smiled happily again. The next second, the assistant outside the office pushed open the door and hurriedly ran in. Brother Zhuang, our hot search has been suppressed. Due to the release of Shi Yan's movie and his comeback announcement, the top 10 on the hot search list are all his names. But Chen Zhuang's contribution is indispensable in this, in order to stir up the traffic of this topic to the fullest. Shi Yan's popularity is already very high, but his dynamics have been silent for almost a year, so Chen Zhuang spent a lot of money to buy many big V marketing accounts, in order to quickly drive traffic in a short period of time. Then, wouldn't endorsements and scripts come knocking at him like a flood? This is a huge money tree. The popularity of Shi Yan has been on the rise. But just now, a few topics were called. Sheng Yuan announces joining Crazy Run. Hashtag the Sheng Yuan poison tumor vase is back. Hashtag Sheng Yuan owes Xiao an apology. The heat rapidly rose to the top of the list, suddenly rushing to the top and quickly overwhelming Shi Yan. As Chen Zhuang's account was about to lose more than half of the 7-digit amount he had just transferred, his forehead had bulging veins. Where the hell did Sheng Yuan come from? He had never heard of it. The assistant shook his head in fear and said, I don't know, Brother Zhuang. In fact, Sheng Yuan's position among female celebrities in the industry can at most be considered as a top 15 or 16 tier figure. To put it bluntly, Tian is just an unknown person. It's strange that she has 2 million followers on her Weibo account. 2 million users, without exception, are all black fans. Each dynamic is accompanied by comments and reposts that add up to 10,000, and the comments section is filled with the level of code that needs to be purified. And most importantly, she slapped Xiao and angered her fans. So, the sun has gone dog. Why did I see this woman again? Sheng Yuan, I am your father. Kneel down and apologize to Xiaobao. Sheng Yuan. Get out of the entertainment industry. Digging a slot. I've never seen such an arrogant female celebrity before. In the past, the first thing I did when I opened my eyes every day was to find Sheng Yuan's Weibo account and say a simple sentence about Chao Nima. I persisted for 5 months without slacking off, and it made me feel like I was working. Finally, she didn't move for 2 months. I thought she had quit her circle, and then I took a vacation. But now she tells me that she's back, Grandma, and I have to go to work again. In the end, I can summarize it into one sentence. Sheng Yuan, I'm Chao Nima. This kind of opportunity that can cause public anger and increase popularity will certainly not be missed by marketing accounts and some well-known media, and they will reprint it one after another, spreading it 10 times 100 times. Sheng Yuan was directly criticized and became a hot topic. Not only Zhao Xiaoxiao's fans were angry, but also the audience of Crazy Run were angry. Lu Wei. You come out and get beaten. What kind of scumbag guest did you choose in the first episode of the 2nd season? Lu Wei is the chief director of Crazy Run. This woman can't carry her shoulders or lift her hands. Is she the one who used to deliver rice cakes? Don't wait until the first task starts, this woman will be made to cry and shout, Mom. Will all of us see this woman's nose and tears flow when the time comes? I really don't understand why I chose her as a guest. It requires intelligence but not intelligence, and physical strength but not physical strength. I vomited. If I don't revoke the official announcement, I will definitely not read it. Upstairs +1, upstairs +2. Chen Zhuang's assistant turned on the LCD TV, which was a screenshot of the comments on Sheng Yuan's Weibo account. Shi Yan's fingers paused slightly on the seat, and finally lifted his eyelids to look over. His gaze fell only on the words, Sheng Yuan rolled out of the entertainment industry, and he quickly withdrew, with no emotions in his pitch-black pupils. The boy's profile was cold and clean, and his eyebrows furrowed slightly. At this point, the phone screen lights up and a text message is sent from an unmarked number, Shi Yan, good night, good dream. There is also a cute and cunning expression attached to the text. It doesn't seem like the emotions that should be drowned out by verbal abuse in hot searches. He didn't respond, pressed off his phone, got up and left, his back slender and cold. Chong chong chong, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. Sheng Yuan hangs up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Sheng Yuan hangs up. All the way to the hotel arranged by the production team, Zhang Bai was telling how terrifying and frightening this program was. Just you delicate and tender. The master who takes 2 steps and takes 5 breaths, why bother? Did you forget? Last year, you injured your fingernail by twisting the bottle cap and stayed in the hospital for a month, crying and shouting for surgery. If it weren't for the doctors unbearable almost hitting you with a hammer, you wouldn't have given up. So, ancestor, just listen to my advice. You really can't do it. The car had already stopped, and Sheng Yuan pulled the suitcase and pushed open the door. I have to go now. Unable to persuade him at all, Zhang Bai sat in the car and let out a deep sigh. Now, that's it. If something happens to this little ancestor, how can Mr. and Mrs. Sheng explain it? Unfortunately, this little ancestor is also a stubborn and impulsive habitual offender. Sheng Yuan took 2 steps and then fell back. Zhang Bai's eyes lit up instantly and he said, what's wrong? Have you figured it out? No, I just want to tell you that if you don't consider becoming a broker in the future, you can apply for the position of reciting scriptures monk at Lingyin Temple because you are really suitable. Keep going. Zhang Bai. The recording location for the first episode of the 2nd season of Crazy Run is in Beijing. The program team prepared the hotel for the first episode guests 1 day in advance, but the guest check.in times were staggered and led by the assistant of the program team. And as long as guests enter the room, they are not allowed to leave and are not given the opportunity to become familiar with each other or form private alliances. The number of guests is the same as in the first season, with 6. It is officially announced that there are 5 known guests, and the 6th one has been kept confidential by the production team. No one knows who the last one is and what their background is. Besides, Sheng Yuan. Sheng Yuan had dinner and, after washing up, leaned back on the bed to send a text message to a number marked as, Cub. You should have a good dinner. Flip the page up. She has been sending text messages to Shi Yan every day for the past 2 weeks, but he has never replied once. There are no exceptions this time. After a whole hour, the news sank like a stone in the sea. Sheng Yuan furrowed her delicate eyebrows, as if thinking of something. She grabbed her phone and tapped the keyboard, then sent another message, to unsubscribe from this message, please reply to TD. In less than a minute, the phone beeped. Baby. TD. Sheng Yuan. QAQ*. The sky outside the window is still gray-blue, hazy. The female photographer carried the equipment, pressed the recording button, aimed at her watch, and said that it was now Beijing time. 4:30 a.m. the time when even dogs can't get up. As an unusual variety show, it definitely takes an unusual route. They invite guests and never look at the coffee table. As long as you dare to come, we dare to make you cry and cry. So the program, Crazy Run, began an unusual lead film recording. The director's team has long thoroughly investigated the background of guest Sheng Yuan. She is sick with a princess, excels in acting, has low double intelligence, and is particularly timid. The day before yesterday, there was a lot of noise on the hot search, and the program team closed their eyes, completely ignoring the calls for Sheng Yuan to withdraw from the program. And he resolutely decided to be the first to knock on Sheng Yuan's door. Because they specially prepared a huge surprise for the first new guest, Sheng Yuan. In the dimly lit corridor, the director's team sneakily brushed open Sheng Yuan's door. The inside of the door was pitch black, and the surroundings were quiet, except for the creaking sound of the door being pushed open. A few oddly dressed figures slipped in and began singing an unknown song in their mouths, with a sharp and terrifying tone that matched the atmosphere, instantly terrifying, like a horror movie. That's right, this is the meticulous arrangement of the program team, black and white unpredictable wake-up service. Ensure that guests open their eyes and feel refreshed, with the key being to open their voices. The director stood at the door. I heard the terrifying scream of the girl about to cut through the sky as expected. He smiled as expected and planned to wait for the camera to record more material before entering the cutting process. The scream lasted for at least a whole minute. And it's getting bigger and more. Wait a minute. Many. The director suddenly felt something was wrong and frowned, intending to go in and take a look. It doesn't matter at first glance. The scene before him almost made him wet his pants. I saw a dimly lit room with several green lights on. A figure hung from the ceiling light, wearing a pale long skirt covered in bright blood. A head of jet black long hair covered the entire face, swaying along with the body. The camera and several girls who played the role of black and white impermanence had already collapsed on the ground with weak legs, huddled together, crying and screaming for their mother while their noses and tears flew straight. The director was stunned and screamed, Sheng Yuan has been hanged. Sheng Yuan has been hanged. Call the police quickly. Someone here. Call the police quickly. He had just finished shouting when he saw his body suddenly move on the chandelier, and then extended a pale hand. Oh my God, I faked the corpse. Sheng Yuan faked the corpse. Hurry up, someone. Sheng Yuan flicked her hair with her hand and then raised her hand, saying, Hi, everyone. Mom. The ghost is talking. The ghost is talking. Sheng Yuan. Seeing that she was playing too much, Sheng Yuan loosened the rope tied to her body and jumped lightly onto the carpet. She walked over and turned on the light. The bright lights instantly illuminated the interior. First time meeting, please pay more attention. The girl raised her hand and tied her hair behind her head, revealing her vivid face with a slightly cunning voice. The person in front of me. He is a living person. Live. The screams of the entire production team seemed to have been momentarily pressed with the pause button, and they all looked at each other. Until Sheng Yuan helped them up one by one from the ground, a group of people were in a confused state of, who am I, and where am I? I'm sorry, I made a small joke with everyone. The girl raised her eyebrows cunningly. The production team got angry. Little joke. We almost scared the hell out of us. Someone asked, what is the blood on you? End of this chapter.